Hey everyone, it's Erin-Coiffel. Welcome to the Trash Talking and Giving Back podcast. I'm excited to be here with Joe Sinagra of Myers Container, launching the first in a series of podcasts to talk about the ways in which this family-owned and operated business lives and cares about the community that they live in. Each week, we'll be featuring people and organizations that give back to the community, and we'll talk about how all of us can make an impact in making Vermont a state that we can really just be proud of. Before we get any further, though, I've got to introduce you to my co-host, Joe Sinagra. He's the operations manager at Myers Containers. He'll be joining me each week while we talk about different ways that Myers is giving back and engage with some of the community leaders about it as well. Joe, introduce yourself. Tell me about you and how did you land at Myers? So how many years has it been now?
Yeah, absolutely. So going on year 15 here with the company. Myers Container was started in 1994. Jeff Myers started as a construction company and got frustrated by the lack of roll-off containers. So those great big dumpsters you see on job sites that he couldn't find enough of them or get them when he needed. So he purchased a few of them just for his own use. And that grew into using them for other job sites, for friends and other businesses. And then the company grew little by little. And then, in 2012 or 2010, Jeff called and asked me to come on board to help with a little bit of everything from helping sort of shepherd the company into the new world of sustainability and recycling of construction material and outreach to the community. So that's how I came aboard to the company. And going on year 15 now, we're one of the largest trash companies and recycling companies in the area. And we have always been, Jeff has always made it a priority to give back to the community. So a lot of what we want to talk about here, as you mentioned, is the stuff that we do as a company. And, it's trash and it's trash talking, so we can't take ourselves too serious. So I'm sure we'll have a little fun along the way as well.
Fair. Well, so let's start off with something a little silly then. You mentioned you've been there for the 15 years and you've done a little bit of everything. What's like the coolest thing you've done? And then what's maybe the right, it's trash. So I'm sure some of it's not been that great. What's like the one where you cringe when you went home and were like, man, I did that for Jeff, but I don't want to have to do that one again?
Well, just about a year and a half ago, we got a call from a woman in hysteric tears and wanted to know where recycling goes after we pick it up. And we talked about where it went when we pick it up on your curb and, it goes into our truck and then it goes to recycling center and then ultimately, it goes on. Well, after we had a chance for her to calm down, she threw away her brand new engagement ring. By accident, of course, and she was terrified to tell her future husband and also very discouraged about exactly how, what she was going to do, this thousands of dollars piece of jewelry. Well, we find out that the recycled material was still on the truck, so it made it a little bit easier. So we brought the truck back to the shop here in Colchester and literally dumped the material on the ground. Now you're talking about 300 households worth of recycling. It was recycling, so it's not trash.
Perfect.
But, if you think about that, you're talking maybe 7 to 10 tons of material. Now our drivers are really good because, they pick up the same houses every week. So he had an idea of roughly where this individual's material was. So he knew it was kind of in the middle. And we sorted through it and we found the needle in the haystack or the diamond in the haystack.
Wow. Wait, did you get invited to the wedding?
No, I did not. I wanted to. I'm a justice of the peace, so I asked, could I perform the wedding? But she passed on that. I mean,
Do we know if the wedding actually happened?
I haven't heard if it happened, but maybe she'll watch and she'll send us a message.
Yes, let us know. We need to see some photos.
Exactly.
This podcast, right? This is a new venture for you guys. Why do you guys want to do something like this?
Yeah, so Jeff is your quintessential Vermonter. He has always helped out his neighbors, be it, helping to split firewood or shoveling the neighbor's car out. We all have that, all of us, Vermonters by birth or Vermonters by choice. I know, Erin, you are, like me, a Vermonter by choice.
Yeah.
But we still have that, deep down gratitude for where we live. So Jeff has given back so much to the community, and the company has, that, we wanted to, part of my job for the company is to help people understand all the things Jeff has done between Boys and Girls Clubs and Cancer Society and the Slam Diabetes tournament out at Little Fenway, things like that. So Jeff has always made it a priority to give back as much as he can. So we want to try to showcase some of that.
Yeah, and this is, as we mentioned, the first in a series of podcasts. So our kind of goal here as co-hosts is every week to have a different person from one of these charities or community events join us so that we can really talk about what they do. And then, of course, tie it into the way that Jeff and Myers Containers likes to support it. But it's, I feel like it's just great to see community leaders that care, right? It's not, he's a businessman, great, but he really just cares about the community he grew up in and lives in, and that we now live in and raise our families in. And I feel like that's really important these days.
Yeah, and we want to show also not just the straight charitable things we do, but, we operate Vermont's only C&D recycling center in the state. And one of the things we do at the recycling center is we're turning raw product into usable things. So we're turning, shingles into road base, into asphalt that's being used in Burlington and on golf courses, and we're turning sheetrock into quickie dry and fertilizer. So giving back, that's another way, the environmental impact that trash has on the state, the country, and the world. We wanted to see how can we help alleviate some of that, so part of this podcast will be where we're going to show some of how that is done and how the product is actually recycled, from when, an individual throws that shingle. A lot of us have our roofs done. I had my roof done recently. Where does those shingles go? And a lot of times it would just go to Coventry, an hour and a half from Burlington. It's a long way. The fossil fuels we're burning in our trucks, the manpower that it's take. Well, if we can keep those shingles out of the landfill and instead use them for road base or golf courses, everyone wins, from the environment to the individual. So, we'll show some of that stuff, and we can't, it's trash, so we can't take ourselves too serious. So we'll have some fun too.
Well, I love it. Well, and I think it's really interesting because forever you're just told, you need to recycle. It's good for the environment. Just do it. Just do it. And I think being able to show people, no, those shingles that were on the roof, that got taken off, they now are, I feel like you told me it's they're the cart path at a local golf course. And,
yeah.
And so I think sometimes showing people what actually happened is so helpful, right? It reminds me of my son, when you're just instead of being don't ride your bike into the road, it's because that car is going to hit you, right? It's bringing it full circle for people to really help them understand and maybe take a little bit more ownership in the importance of recycling.
Exactly. And then all the stuff that goes into that, we're a family business. Jeff is here every day. His two sons are working in the business every day. So a lot of the employees who've been here, they've been here long. Some of them have been here longer than I have, 20 years. So, I want a chance for us to go and talk to some of these workers. It's easy for me to sit in here. Today it's warm, it's hot in my office here, so I'm wearing short sleeves. It's easy for me. Our guys are out on the street where it's not that warm today, picking up trash. They're starting their day. I'm still in bed. You're probably up because you have little ones, but they're starting their day at 5 a.m. I'm still, warm in my bed at 5.
I wish. I think last night I was warm in my 3-year-old's bed at 5 a.m. He's been into that habit. I know your kids are grown, so you're past that part.
Yeah, 15 years ago when my kids were little and I started here, I had black hair. Now, I don't. And, now, Take this weekend, for example. My oldest son gave me tickets to a baseball game as Christmas. So he lives in Connecticut. So I go down and pick him up, and we go, and we're going to spend the night in New York City. And before the game, he said, "Oh, let's go have a beer." Now he's 22, so he's legal. So we go out to the bar, and he's 22 and he can drink like a 22-year-old, and I'm 48 and I can't drink like a 22-year-old, even though I think I can. So we made it to the game, but your challenges of how you felt this morning, Erin, after a night with your 3-year-old, probably was similar how I felt like a night after my 22-year-old, but probably a little different reasons.
And then you had to sit in the car and drive home.
Yeah, exactly. Oh. So, and that's okay. And I dropped him off on the way home. And, as you probably remember when you were 22, he was he was ready to go.
I would have been like, you're driving and maybe you got to come and see your mom in Vermont and just drive me the whole way because I can't hang with you. My goodness.
Exactly. It's somebody once said, my wife asked my father, who I'm one of 4, and she asked my father, "So what was the hardest time? You raised 4 kids. What's the hardest age?" And he says, "The hardest age is the age you're in." And it's really true.
Yeah, there's just different.
There's times I wanted to, I didn't want a 3-year-old. There was times, so.
I feel you on that. But more importantly, you failed to mention that I'm assuming this was a Mets game.
It was the Mets game, yes.
Just so everyone knows out there, Joe is a big Mets guy. Absolutely. Did they win this weekend?
They did, actually. It was the Toronto series. It was Saturday night. It was drizzly and 44. So it was a cool evening in Queens. But yes, I know you're a big sports fan too, Erin. They were dragging a little bit, but they came back and tied it in the 9th and had a walk-off. So it was kind of a great night all the way around, and it was fun. So, but
next year, tell him to get you a ticket for a game in like June or July instead of early April.
Absolutely.
We kind of skipped through the basics, right? We kind of just assumed, Myers Containers, everyone's heard of them. I'm sure everyone has seen the red cans before, but for someone who's maybe not really familiar with Myers Containers and everything you guys do, kind of what's the elevator pitch? How do you describe Myers Containers?
Yeah, so we're a full trash and recycling business. So, 40% of our business is residential trash pickup. So the totes that you see on the side or the carts that you see on the side of the road, we pick up trash and recycling at residents, basically Franklin, Chittenden, Lamoille, and the 3 Kingdom counties pick up weekly trash for, upwards of 10,000 customers. 40% of our business is construction, or commercial establishment, restaurant dumpsters, the big roll-offs, things of that sort. And then, as I mentioned, we operate a C&D center, construction debris, here in Colchester by Costco. And that's where anyone, not just contractors, they bring in their construction material. We sort it, and more importantly, we keep that product out of the landfill. So you're talking, thousands of tons of waste that normally would go to the landfill, we're repurposing. So the company has grown over the years, but that's kind of the big part of how the company is broken down for our different segments.
Okay, and remind me, how long has Myers been around? When did it start?
Yeah, so Jeff started in 1994, really predominantly in the Chittenden County, Franklin County area. And the business grown over the years. And then in 2015 is when we opened the recycling center, and that's when the business kind of moved in that direction. But, we're picking up, you see our red dumpsters all over the area. You see our big trucks every place. So, yeah.